Chris Krebs is terminated from the White House cybersecurity chief, and all of Twitter erupts in a 25th Amendment now he's trying to hide something scheme going on here. More votes are found in Georgia, and once again, still on a split, slightly favoring Trump, so we'll talk a bit about that. Wayne County, Michigan had a deadlock as to whether or not to certify their election, and then Rashida Tlaib called them racist, and then they kowtowed to it, and the wonderful people of social media are back up on the hill. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today. As we always do here, some of the news is starting to move off of being all election coverage as the rest of the world realizes that they can't stand still forever, which that's what they do. But before we get into any of the news of the day that we have here today, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Generational Gap, who will be on their new night tonight. We also carry the Freckles and Brit Show and the R-Rated Conservative. So come on over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. All right, moving into the news here, looking at the stocks. Starting with the Dow, which let's bring that back up to the chart. Looks like the Dow had a down day throughout all the rest of the day. It dropped almost a full percentage point throughout the day. Almost 2 percentage points as it dropped to the bottom, but then it clawed its way back up here, back to its point of 29,783.35. And the futures are looking like right now they're going to be up here, so we'll see what the experts have to say on that one. Starting with IBD. Dow Jones futures rally 150 points on Pfizer coronavirus vaccine news. Tesla races higher on upgrade while NEO jumps on earnings. From Scott Latonin. Dow Jones futures advanced to session highs early Wednesday on Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine news. Tesla raced higher on a Morgan Stanley upgrade, while Chinese rival NEO jumped nearly 4% on earnings. The Dow Jones Industrial Average led major stock indices lower with a 0.6% decline, or 167 points. The S&P 500 fell 0.5%, while the tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite moved down 0.2%. All three major stock indices are close to reaching record highs. Among the Dow leaders, Apple fell 0.8%, while Microsoft slid 1.3%. Meanwhile, Salesforce is once again approaching a new buy point amid Tuesday's 2.5% advance. IBD stock of the day Tesla surged 8.2% on its inclusion in the S&P 500 index. Early Wednesday, Tesla rallied 3% after Morgan Stanley upgraded the stock. Chinese rival NEO briefly dived more than 8% on earnings late Tuesday before erasing losses to turn higher. NEO advanced nearly 4% in pre-market trade. Stocks in or near buy zones in the stock market rally are Chipotle and Facebook. Chipotle, Microsoft, and Tesla are all IBD leaderboard stocks. Meanwhile, Apple is on the IBD leaderboard watch list. Early Wednesday, Dow Jones futures rose 0.5% versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures were up 0.3%. NASDAQ 100 futures rallied just 0.2% versus fair value. Remember, trading in Dow Jones futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. On Wednesday, Pfizer and BioNTech said final data analysis found their coronavirus vaccine was 95% effective in preventing COVID-19. The drug maker said that the vaccine candidate was highly effective against the virus 28 days after the first dose, and its effectiveness was consistent across all ages, races, and ethnicities. Researchers haven't found any serious safety issues, the company said. So the rally is going to come back up on the markets, and we're going to see if the vaccine actually gets out before Inauguration Day or before they certify the results, because I think that is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with that and whether or not they allow it to go forward or whether they hold it back because of the current occupant of the White House. I know they try to tell you, no, we don't ever do that, but They do that. Let's see what CNBC has to say, though. Dow futures rise 120 points as stocks look set to resume gains following a pause in the rally from Yoon Lee and Maggie Fitzgerald. U.S. stock futures bounced on Wednesday, a day after a pause in the market's rally to records. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures rose 120 points, or 0.4%. The move indicated an opening gain of about 117 points. Futures for the S&P 500 added 0.2%, and NASDAQ 100 futures were 0.1% higher. Here's what got futures moving in the positive direction. Pfizer released their final data. We talked about that over in the other article. Boeing jumped 5% as Pfizer said that we're going to stick you in the arm with a needle and make you feel safe. Target rose 2% after the retailer's third quarter earnings topped estimates because of booming digital sales and the fact that not a lot of people want to give their money to Walmart right now. That's another thing to keep in mind. I know I'm not alone in that because of their whole, well, we're not going to sell ammo for $2.23. I know I wasn't the only person that stopped shopping at Walmart over there, and Target is a nice place to go and get your department store kind of stuff. On Tuesday, the average fell more than 167 points, dragged down by Walgreens, Home Depot, and Walmart. The S&P 500 lost 0.5%. Tuesday's session was the first time in 3 days the Dow and the S&P 500 fell, following their record closes on Monday. So we'll probably see a good opening and possibly some good news throughout the day here, erasing the losses that we saw yesterday. So we will see what they have going on. All right, let's keep going. From CNBC once again, Trump says DHS cybersecurity chief Chris Krebs has been terminated. From Amanda Macias. President Donald Trump announced Tuesday on Twitter that he has terminated top U.S. Wow, I can read this morning. President Trump announced Tuesday on Twitter that he has terminated top U.S. cybersecurity official Christopher Krebs. In a pair of tweets, Trump said that Krebs gave a highly inaccurate statement about the security of the 2020 presidential election. Trump, who has not yet conceded to President-elect Joe Biden, alleged that the election was riddled with massive improprieties and fraud. Twitter labeled the president's tweets with a warning, citing the claim about the election fraud is disputed. You notice they're not saying it's false, they're just saying it's disputed. The tweet says, in a recent statement by Chris Krebs on the security of the 2020 election was highly inaccurate, in that there were massive improprieties and fraud, the worst kind of fraud, including dead people voting, and those dead people, they're not voting for me, because I'm not their favorite president. I'm only the favorite president of people who are alive. Poll watchers, not allowed into polling locations, but they were allowed in, but they couldn't see anything because they moved the machines 20 feet away. Glitches in the voting machines, which changed, and then they blocked off the rest of it. Krebs, who heads the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, is responsible for leading the effort to protect U.S. elections. He has previously said there's no evidence the elections were compromised by foreign intelligence or interference. On Election Day, Krebs called on Americans to be patient and treat all sensational and unverified claims with skepticism. Regardless of the outcome here, there is a common bond that is stronger than political affiliation, and that we are all Americans, Krebs said during a November 3rd press conference, adding, keep calm and vote on, and after today, keep calm and let them count on. Earlier on Tuesday, Krebs tweeted from his government account, on allegations that the election systems were manipulated, 59 election security experts all agree that we're going to get rid of the evil orange man. In every case of which we are aware, these claims either have been unsubstantiated or are technically incoherent. Less than an hour after Trump tweeted about his firing, Krebs wrote from his personal Twitter account that he was honored to serve. He is the latest Trump administration official to depart on the heels of the election. I'm proud of the work that we did at the CISA, Krebs told NBC News on Tuesday night after the firing. I'm proud of the teammates I had at CISA. We did it, right? A source with knowledge of the firing told NBC News Krebs found out the news via Twitter, and that it was upsetting for him because he took the work seriously. And yes, all of Twitter erupted into 25th Amendment now. No, it's not too late to give him the 25th Amendment. They are desperate to try and pull him off by technicality so they can put an asterisk next to his name at the cusp of what they believe is going to be the end of his presidency. And I actually don't believe that so many people on the left believe that they're done with Trump. Just looking at some of the things that they do, I'm pretty sure that some of them at least believe there's a possibility of flipping the election. Otherwise, we wouldn't be hearing 25th Amendment now. We'd be hearing trending, your days are numbered. Just wait it out, and you'll be at the end. But on the other side of that as well, I mean, the president is inaugurated until January 20th, if he does wind up losing off of this, and we'll talk a bit about some of the discrepancies that are going on that have nothing to do with fraud, because there are plenty of those as well, that could overturn the rest of this and bring it out to House delegation. But there's still a lot of damage that he could do, and he does need to do it. He needs to break all the toys on his way out. There's so much government impropriety from both parties, and they're using the office of the presidency as well as loopholes going into Congress. One of the best things Trump could do, whether he wins or loses, is continue to break all their toys so they actually have to be transparent and honest with the American people. That's one of my favorite things about this presidency. The media, they have a camera up his ass constantly. Constantly. So even if he was trying to hide something, the media would never let him get away with it. And I know with coming in with Joe and the Ho, if they do wind up coming in, then all of a sudden it's going to be, oh, look at all these pretty dogs that Joe Biden has. Hey, we're going to leave you alone for a little while and leave the people to talk about these words of wisdom that you put out like, kabadadadba. So that's one of the good things that came out of the Trump presidency. Godspeed to Chris Krebs. Probably shouldn't have gone back against your boss, but that's between you and him. We can't judge that from the outside. And on that, let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, experts listed 27 House races as toss-ups. Republicans won all 27. From Cabot Phillips. On Monday, Burgess Owens, a former NFL player and vocal critic of Colin Kaepernick, was declared the winner of Utah's 4th Congressional District. Despite running against an incumbent and trailing by 11% in final polling, Owens prevailed. Oh, excuse me, folks. I think I might have a little bit of a cold. Maybe it's the coronavirus. Maybe I'm going to die on screen. Who knows? Hold on, let me hit the cough button here. Oh, sorry about that. That is completely unprofessional. Anyway, let's get back into the article here. Despite running against an incumbent and trailing by 11% in final polling, Owens prevailed in a race deemed a toss-up by Cook Political Report, a nonpartisan election and campaign analysis group popular among legacy media outlets. Ahead of the 2020 election, Cook listed 27 races as toss-ups, meaning they were too close to predict one way or the other. Republicans won all 27. That's not a typo. Despite being assured that conservatism was about to drown beneath the impending blue wave, Republicans won every single close race. Republicans also won 26 races deemed leaning or likely Republican and even picked up 7 of the 36 seats listed as leaning or likely Democrat. Despite nearly unanimous predictions that Democrats would further cement control of the House, they now hold just a 218 to 204 advantage, with Republicans poised to pick up more seats as they lead in 8 of the remaining 13 races. Republican dominance in supposedly 50-50 districts is yet another reminder of just how wrong polls were in 2020 and how wrong they have been for some time. What should embarrass pollsters most, though, is not the fact that they were wrong, but how one-sided they were in the process. So yes, and I do love seeing the turnaround here and the fact that they're getting back into the point of a split government. I was almost afraid to see President Trump get a mandate coming up here because I know that he was going to try and squeak some shit through that just to stick it to Democrats in the country because he's vindictive. He is very, very vindictive, but You know, either way it comes out, I think the government's going to be deadlocked. And when the government can't do anything, this guy here is a happy guy. Let's talk about Georgia. Starting with Fox News. Georgia election audit finds 3,039 more uncounted ballots in 2 counties. From Ron Blitzer. More than 3,000 uncounted ballots turned up in Georgia as the state is conducting an audit of the 2020 presidential election. As the hand tallying continues, in Fayette County unearthed 2755 ballots that had not been included in the original count. There was an issue where we noticed there were more people on the absentee ballot filed for voting in person in Fayette County than there was in actual reporting, Georgia election official Gabriel Sterling said, according to Fox 5 Atlanta. It was discovered today for certain. Because of the audit, we found this. Sterling said the problem was the result of several individuals not following the proper procedures. An additional 284 ballots were found in Walton County. The local Board of Elections chair, Lori Wood, told the Walton Tribune the problem was due to votes being previously uploaded from only one of the 2 ballot scanners in a precinct. We would have discovered it, Wood said. Maybe not this week. Maybe, but we would have discovered it. Possibly after we safely got Joe Biden over the hump and we got Kelly Loeffler in. Or out, rather, not in. The people that are doing the impropriety, I would guess, would not want Loeffler in. The Walton County ballots boosted President Trump's lead in the heavily Republican county by 176 votes. The recent findings follow the discovery of more than 2,600 ballots in Floyd County that had not been counted. At the time, Floyd County Republican Party Chair Luke Martin called the mishap concerning, but insisted it doesn't appear to be a widespread issue. The state is also conducting an investigation of Fulton County's election management. Unless additional uncounted ballots are found during the audit, it does not appear that the audit will result in a change in the state's election result, as President-elect Joe Biden had been leading by approximately 1,400 votes. Sterling said in the updated count in Fayette County trimmed the lead to just under 13,000. And that's 3 counties right there that they're just finding ballots that weren't uploaded. And I don't know about you, but that just seems just a little bit fucky to me. It's enough to go out and start looking very, very closely and possibly bringing this up to the Supreme Court and say, hey, we either need a redo in Georgia or we need to toss it back out. One of the two. Because I can't trust the results out of Georgia right now. That's 3 counties that have come out and said, oh, well, here, let's hide these ballots. I know I just listened to a video of a guy ranting about the Army takeover of the Dominion server, and I don't buy any of that because I haven't been able to independently verify it. If I can independently verify it, I'll buy it, but I have not been able to independently verify the Army taking control of the Dominion servers and all the impropriety that comes with that. But here we are with our lying eyes seeing, oh, hey, let's just not count these ballots. In 3 counties in Georgia. I don't know if it's just them stuffing the voter rolls, dead people coming out and voting, people coming out and voting twice, voting 3 times, if it's that kind of impropriety. But it does seem right now like it's just, oh, well, this is kind of a Trump-friendly district. Hey, let's just leave some of these ballots out of here and not count them. And we'll talk a bit more about that here because I got a couple more on Georgia as well, including whether or not stuff was counted. So let's move on from this here. Going on to the Blaze. Let's get to the top here. Georgia's GOP Secretary of State says Trump cost himself the state by discouraging absentee voting. He would have won by over 10,000 votes. And we'll talk about this. Georgia Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said Tuesday that President Trump cost himself the election in the state by discouraging absentee voting, claiming that otherwise the president would have won Georgia by 10,000 votes. WSB TV's Justin Gray reported that Raffensperger told him in an exclusive interview that roughly 24,000 registered Republican voters who voted absentee in the state's primary election in June failed to vote in the November 3rd general election. Those 24,000 people did not vote in the fall, Raffensperger said in the video footage posted by WSB. Either they did not vote absentee because they were told by the president, don't vote absentee, it's not secure, but then they did not come out and vote in person. So, and this is important right here, given the article that we just read from Fox News. 24,000 registered Republican voters voted absentees in the state's primary election, where they didn't have to vote for President Trump, because he was running almost unopposed. When Georgia came around, there were still other people on there, but they were at like 1% of the vote. So they were statistically irrelevant. So 24,000 people came out to the primary where President Trump was running unopposed, just to say that they voted for him. And those 24,000 people didn't vote in the fall. And now we're finding ballots that were uncounted, and you're telling me that I'm supposed to accept this on its face. That's what you're telling me right now, that I'm supposed to accept this, just sit down and accept this, without sitting back and questioning it. You are out of your mind. If you're going to tell me that 24,000 registered Republican voters voted absentee in the state's primary and then just suddenly didn't come out and vote, no. This I cannot accept on its face. I cannot. Not given the fact that we've just found 3 counties that said, oh, hey, let's just feed these into the machine. There's no way that I'm going to accept this on its face. Raffensperger says he actually suppressed, depressing his own voting base. Yeah, there is something else going on here. Let's listen to what he's got to say. Notice there's no claim of this is disputed on this one because it's going the way that Twitter wants it to go.
Told by the president, don't vote absentee. It's not primary. Those 24,000 people did not vote in the fall either. They did not vote absentee because they were told by the president, don't vote absentee. It's not secure. But then they did not come out and vote in person. He would have won by 10,000 votes. He actually suppressed his own voting base primary.
So that's what he had to say here. We read that back from him, pretty much verbatim at this point. But yeah. And then you're telling me that these votes just mysteriously didn't get counted. Fuck off. All right, let's keep going here. From CNN Politics, Georgia Secretary of State says Lindsey Graham implied that he should try to throw away ballots. From Carolyn Kelly, Manu Raju, and Sarah Fortinsky. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger stood firm on Monday on his account that Senator Lindsey Graham had hinted that he should try to discard some ballots in Georgia, where a recount is underway after the state went for President-elect Joe Biden in the presidential election. He asked if the ballots could be matched back to voters, Raffensperger told CNN's Wolf Blitzer on the Situation Room Monday evening, and then he got the sense implied that then you could throw those out for any, if you look at the counties with the highest frequent error of signatures. So that's the impression I got. He later added, it was just an implication of look hard and see how many ballots you could throw out. Raffensperger's comments come after he told the Washington Post on Monday that Graham had cast doubt on Georgia's signature matching law in a conversation on Friday, and had also floated the possibility that biased poll workers could have counted ballots with inconsistent signatures. Graham, a South Carolina Republican who is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, also inquired if Raffensperger could discard all mail-in ballots from counties that had shown higher rates of unmatched signatures. The Republican Secretary of State told the Post on Monday. And that's not the right answer either. I mean, if the people are actually voting absentee, can provide the signature match to the level that is acceptable by Georgia law, then they should be counted. But yes, there are going to be inconsistencies, forgeries, otherwise. And those, if they're not legal, then they shouldn't be counted. If they're legal, they should be counted. I'm not against absentee voting. I never have been. But the fact that they tried to use it in a widespread point leads me to think that there's something else fishy going on here. Especially given the fact that now we're seeing, once again, votes that, oh, well, man, let's just not count these. This box here, this is from a Trump-safe district. Let's not count these. We're seeing it. It's there. And no, it's not in a high enough number to push it over the edge for Trump. But what are we not seeing is the question. We found 3,000 for I don't think there was 3,000 for Trump, but we found over 3,000 ballots in general. Who's to say there aren't more? But we'll see what happens up off of that. Going on to Michigan, which I think somebody was talking about in the chat. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on there, because there are a couple things going on with that one. Michigan's Wayne County certification deadlock leads to unanimous certification after allegations of racism. From Edmund DeMarsh. Jenna Ellis, a senior legal advisor of the Trump 2020 campaign, told Fox News at night on Tuesday that 2 Republicans on Michigan's Wayne County Board of Canvassers involved in a brief deadlock in the county's election certification process faced threats and allegations of racism before they agreed to certify the ballots. Their decision to side with their Democratic colleagues was dramatic and viewed by conservatives on social media as a capitulation after a brutal 2-hour public pressure campaign. Ellis told Shannon Bream, the host of the show, that she received reports that these 2 board members correctly spotted discrepancies, and she said the ballot counts in 71% of the county's precincts do not match voter rolls. That's significant, she said. That doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You should be concerned about that, and you should. Kayleigh McEnany, Trump's White House press secretary, announced earlier on Twitter that there were 234 pages of sworn affidavits that raised allegations of fraud in the county. Chad Pergram tweets, GOP Michigan Senate candidates, James, I applaud the Wayne County Board of Canvassers for their bravery in the face of unbelievable pressure to ignore the inconvenient truths that threaten our democracy. William Hartman and Monica Palmer, the canvassers, had been praised by fellow Republicans. John James, the Republican Senate candidate from the state, who is black, said he applauded them for their bravery in the face of unbelievable pressure to ignore inconvenient truths that threaten our democracy. Laura Cox, the Michigan Republican Party's chairwoman, also said in a statement that there appeared to be enough evidence of irregularities and potential voter fraud that was uncovered, the Detroit Free Press reported. The deadlock even caught the attention of President Trump, who tweeted, "Wow, Michigan just refused to certify the election results. Having courage is a beautiful thing, the best thing, the greatest thing. The USA stands proud." Critics said that the decision to not to certify these votes was a direct affront on minority communities. Ned Stabler, the chief executive of Techtown, who, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper, is a poll challenger at the TCF Center in the city, said in a viral Zoom meeting the Trump stain, the stain of racism that you, William Hartman, and Monica Palmer have covered yourself in, is going to follow you throughout history.
More than 166,000
he said the 2 would forever be known in southeastern
over the
Michigan as 2 racists
period.
who
Johns
did
Hopkins
something so unprecedented that they disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of black voters in the city of Detroit. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the state's Democrat, said in an earlier statement, "I'm refusing to approve the results of the election in Wayne County. The 2 Republican members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers have placed partisan politics above their legal duty to certify the election results." No, their legal duty is to make sure that the results can be certified and then decide whether or not to certify them. They're not just rubber stampers. I know that that's what you want to have out there, is just rubber stampers because it goes in your favor the way that it will be rubber stamped. But no, that's not their duty. Representative Rashida Tlaib took to Twitter to blame the canvassers of putting politics above their duty to our residents. Suggesting that all of Wayne County can be certified except for Detroit is horrifyingly racist and subversion of our democracy. We're going to impeach the motherfuckers, Tlaib said. She praised the residents in the county after the decision to certify was announced. So, yeah, they buckled to pressure. And yes, Chrome Piece over there in the chat had mentioned the fact that they were not certified, but yeah, they buckled to pressure. They dropped down to one knee and said, please, please don't call me a racist. So, at this point, Wayne County is certified, Michigan is certified, and now the lawsuits can come in. Because, if I'm not mistaken, Michigan is like Wisconsin, and they cannot do the recounts until everything is certified. So, now it can come in, and now we can actually see audits and everything else to come with it. Let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, pair charged with voter fraud over scheme involving homeless and voter registration forms. There's no such thing as voter fraud. There's no such thing as voter fraud. Oh, hey, look, a case of voter fraud. No, don't look over here. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. 2 people, including a former potential mayoral candidate, have been charged in a voter fraud case where more than 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications were allegedly submitted on behalf of homeless people in Los Angeles. That state, the state of California, could have a 99% to 1% Republican turnout, and they would still call it for the Democrat. Just so you know. So this is almost pointless to see, but let's see what they have to say, because my popular vote. Between July and October, 53-year-old Carlos Antonio de Bourbon Montenegro, a.k.a. Mark Anthony Gonsalves, allegedly submitted more than 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications, allegedly falsifying names, addresses, and signatures on nomination papers under penalty of perjury to run for mayor in Hawthorne, reported NBC Los Angeles on Tuesday. Montenegro and his co-defendant, Marcos Raul Arevalo, were trying to get the registrar's office to send them mail-in ballots for the fake voters. No votes were ever actually cast, the report said. The registrar caught on quickly and flagged the applications, so nobody actually voted. Montenegro is facing 18 felony counts of voter fraud, 11 felony counts of procuring a false or forged instrument, 2 felony counts of perjury, 1 felony count of conspiracy to commit voter fraud, and 9 misdemeanor counts of interference, with a prompt transfer of a completed affidavit, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, the report noted. But voter fraud never happens. And that's the big thing that goes along with all this stuff. We see the 3,000 extra in Georgia, going along with the 2,600 that we found elsewhere in Georgia. And suddenly 14,000 people, 24,000 people rather, who voted in the primary didn't come out to vote in the general. We see this, and these are the ones that we find. Michigan, not wanting to certify because of signature discrepancies, being caught and then being pressured to certify them anyway. And now this. Thousands of mail-in ballots petitioned for by a mayoral candidate. We see this. These are the things that we see. What do we not see? These are just statistical, and these are things that we don't normally see because the opponent normally concedes at the end of the night when they see one way or another. And given the numbers that were coming in on Trump's favor on election night, we would have all expected to see Biden concede. Under any other normal circumstance, if we'd have seen numbers like that, Cenk Uygur was sweating through his suit. But now, we're finding all this stuff here, and what do we not see? What have we not seen for years? Who's been sitting in office that shouldn't be sitting in office? From decades past. We don't know. But this is just the stuff that we're finding. I don't care who wins at this point, they all suck. But if I'm going to go and vote, then I at least want to know that my vote's going to count for something, instead of being disappeared because it goes the wrong way. Or cast or switched. Or just eliminated outright. Or offset by somebody requesting a mail-in ballot for somebody who isn't eligible for a mail-in ballot. I want to know that my vote is going to count for something, my voice is going to count for something. Even in a fake democracy, people should be allowed to have that kind of image coming from their government. Let's keep going. From The Blaze, hate hoax accusation, N-word, KKK swastika spray painted on car, but authorities say the owner did it. This is from Dave Urbanski over at The Blaze. A vehicle was discovered last month spray painted with the N-word, KKK, swastikas, as well as messages in support of President Trump's re-election and against Black Lives Matter in North Buffalo, New York. But now authorities say the owner of the BMW X5 carried out the vandalism WGRZ-TV reported. Erie County District Attorney John Flynn last week said 18-year-old Clifton Utsi allegedly spray-painted his own car and is facing multiple charges, the station said. Third-degree insurance fraud, a felony. Falsely reporting an incident, a misdemeanor. Offering false instrument for filing, a misdemeanor. And falsifying business records, a misdemeanor. The graffiti also included a homophobic slur, and the car's windshield was smashed, the Buffalo News reported. Police report also said sugar was poured into the gas tank. Yeah, that's usually the point where you start to look at this and say, yeah, this is just idiocy. This is somebody trying to get something done. I don't want my car anymore. I want the cash because I want to buy something else. Utsi was released on his own recognizance and is scheduled for a January 11th felony hearing, the station said, adding that if convicted on all charges, Utsi faces up to 7 years in prison, plus he's got to come up with the money to fix his car on his own after not working for 7 years because he was in prison. Frank Lo Tempio III, Utsi's attorney, entered a plea of not guilty on his client's behalf, the news reported, adding that Flynn said that there's video evidence to support the fraud allegation. Behave out there, Mr. Utsi, City Court Judge Shannon Hennigan said, according to the paper. You know what? And it is people like that there who go out and mess up their own stuff and get paid out for it that make insurance rates out the fucking roof for the rest of us. Because there's always the possibility that an insurance company is actually going to have to pay out for something like this. Now, this dude got caught, but once again, a bunch of them don't get caught. Sugar in the gas tank. All right, let's keep going. From CNN, bad news for Wall Street. Elizabeth Warren's fingerprints are all over Biden's transition team. From Matt Egan. Elizabeth Warren's fingerprints are all over the Biden transition, much to Wall Street's dismay. I love the fact that now CNN has turned on Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders because now they have to make this look like the party of moderates because they've got to do something to try and win the runoff in Georgia. Something, anything to try and win that runoff. President-elect Joe Biden's agency review teams include several people who share Warren's reputation for being tough on the financial industry. It's more evidence of the influence of Warren, a fierce opponent of big banks and the excesses of Wall Street, as well as an early signal that Wall Street will be under much greater scrutiny, especially compared to 4 years of President Trump's effort to dismantle regulation and unshackle big banks. The big bank CEOs who read that list are probably somewhat concerned, said Isaac Boltanski, Director of Policy Research at Compass Point Research and Trading. Progressives absolutely won the day on this. Biden tapped about 500 people to work with the government agencies from CAA to United States Postal Service and help shape the future of government policy and appointments. Perhaps top on Wall Street's worry list is Gary Gensler, who will lead the team working with financial regulatory agencies, including the Federal Reserve, SEC, and FDIC. Gensler led the Commodity Futures Trading Commission from May 2009 to January of 2014. Among the Obama-era regulators, Gensler was the most aggressive in implementing the Dodd-Frank financial reform law that Wall Street opposed. Gary Gensler undoubtedly brings back some bad memories, said Boltanski. So, yep, we're going back into this point of regulate, and wonder why the economy doesn't come back. Hey, let's get some more people on the government teat. Let's keep going. From The Hill. Pfizer CEO says no concerns about distribution of vaccine, from Nathaniel Weichsel. Pfizer CEO on Tuesday sought to calm concerns about the distribution of challenges of needing ultra-cold storage for his company's COVID-19 vaccine. I feel very confident about it, Albert Bourla said during an interview at a Stat News event. Bourla said the company has developed a special isothermic box, which will not need to be shipped in refrigerated trucks or planes. It can be sent with any normal transportation, Bourla said. Inside, it has a thermometer and a GPS. We can track not only where the box is at every point in time, but also what the temperature is to make sure it doesn't fall above or below the specifications. The vaccine needs to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius or nearly minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit, far colder than any standard freezer. The boxes hold between 1,000 and 5,000 doses, which will be shipped to vaccine distribution locations in the U.S. and other developed countries overnight as soon as the company receives an address. Once someone has the box, they can keep the doses for weeks in the box or for months in the supercooler or for days in the normal freezer. So, I think people will be surprised at how smoothly the whole operation will go, Borla said. However, experts have cautioned that the ultra-cold freezers will be a financial burden. In addition, Pfizer's vaccine requires 2 doses, 21 days apart, making it more complicated to deliver the required number of treatments, with doses going to waste. So is the first one the actual 5G tracker and the second one the chemical that activates it? Pfizer announced the initial results from the clinical trials last week, leading to accusations from President Trump and his allies. The decision to announce results was based on politics to deny him a win. Borla had initially said the company expected results by the end of October, which Trump seized on as a political tool for re-election to show his administration was making progress in combating the pandemic. Borla said he does not regret saying a COVID-19 vaccine would be available in October and denied the announcement was political. Yep, still not going to take it. But I'm glad that the people that want to take it, that are so concerned about their safety of a virus that most people survive, are going to have the opportunity to take it. And then we can get business and the economy back up and, well, look, Joe Biden gave us the most impressive economy ever. It was Trump's economy, though, but that came in where everything was going bad. It's amazing how an economy takes 4 years to kick in after the person leaves office. Let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, CBS comedy The Neighborhood, police enforce the same system as slavery. From Paul Bois. It seems that the message of Black Lives Matter has stretched beyond the usual cop shows and into sitcoms. In the 3rd season premiere of CBS's The Neighborhood, the police are characterized as being enforcers of systemic racism, akin to that of slavery. The moment comes when character Malcolm tells his family how a friend of his was arrested by police without cause. We were playing ball down by the park and these cops showed up and just started harassing us. And Trey told them we weren't doing anything wrong, and they just threw him on the ground and started beating him up. Malcolm says in the episode, as recorded by Newsbusters. And you wonder why I have no cable TV and no desire to have it. I thought about getting CBS All Access because I was curious as to where they took the Picard character in the new Star Trek. I'm not hopeful, but I'm curious. But at this point, no, I'm not going to give my money to CBS. Fuck that. All right, let's keep going. From the New York Times, a former newspaper, Zuckerberg and Dorsey face harsh questioning from lawmakers. This is no author given, apparently. It was written by a robot. A robot, I say. The Senate Judiciary Committee concluded its hearing with Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's chief executive, and Jack Dorsey, Twitter's chief executive, after more than 4 hours and 127 questions on Tuesday. The New York Times tracked each question. Here's what they found. Republicans asked 72 questions of the chief executives, 53 of which concerned how they moderate content on their social media platforms. Republican senators were particularly focused on how Twitter and Facebook could employ less moderation, with 37 questions about censoring conservative voices and the ideological makeup of their work voices. Democrats asked 14 questions about content moderation, but most of those focused on whether more moderation could help prevent the spread of hate speech and violence. After content moderation, lawmakers asked most about misinformation, with 39 questions about the propagation of misinformation on social media platforms. Democrats lobbed 37 of those queries, often mentioning false claims made by President Trump about voter fraud in the presidential election. Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat of Minnesota, briefly grilled both Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Zuckerberg on antitrust concerns. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican in South Carolina, asked about whether Facebook and Twitter could become addictive. So, and I mean, we know what this is. Dorsey got up with his beard and said, okay, that's a problem, and we're going to look into this. And Zuckerberg says, we will make this more equal along platforms. Please don't revoke R230. And nothing is going to get done. But I thought you guys would be interested to hear about it. Let's keep going. Another one on this from CBS 21. Senators grill Twitter, Facebook on handling of 2020 election misinformation. From Leandra Bernstein. Social media companies marshaled an aggressive response during the presidential election to crack down on the spread of misinformation and incendiary posts. Those efforts are largely why Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, and Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, were called before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday. Republicans and Democrats agreed on how the social media platforms handled the election. Republicans claimed that Twitter and Facebook exceeded their role as neutral internet platforms. Yeah. By labeling, blocking, or downgrading posts that made false claims. Yes. About the election, or attempted to incite violence. Democrats, meanwhile, questioned why companies didn't go further in preventing the spread of disinformation, particularly by President Trump and his allies. There were at least two things that both sides agreed on. First, that social media companies have accrued immense power and influence. Second, Congress must reform the law that shields social media companies from being held liable for the content shared on their platform, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Let's see what old Lindsey Graham had to say about that.
My hope is that we change Section 230 to incentivize social media platforms to come up with standards that are transparent and opaque that will allow us to make judgments about their judgments, that the fact checkers be known, that the community standards, who sets them, what are their biases, and give some direction to these companies because they have almost an impossible task. My hope is that we change Section 230.
And that's going to be the thing that comes out. And no matter who winds up winning this election, that's going to be the thing that comes out in the next term. Is what are we going to do about Section 230? I just wish the government didn't have to get involved in every goddamn aspect of our lives. Now, as far as 230 goes, we do need to sit back and talk a little bit about something with that, because Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter are all getting government subsidy to host emergency channels and government services. So the government gives them a little, hey, we'll take a little bit less taxes out of you here if you host this for us, so that we don't have to come up with a platform to do it. But at this point, yes, they are an aspect and an arm of the government. If the government is hosting stuff like that on there, to try and make sure that they don't have to come up with their own platform to do it. Which at that point, I believe that Facebook, Twitter, YouTube would all fall under the auspices of the First Amendment, because of the fact that the government is utilizing them as a tool in their arsenal. So I don't know how that works. I'm not a lawyer. I thought about going to law school at some point, or even just going to see if I could pass the bar, but I would actually have to deep dive into 230 and see where that would work and what it would do. But for the most part, this is just going to be people sitting around, the Republicans shrieking and shrill because, oh, they're censoring us. And the Democrats, yay, they're censoring Republicans. And nothing's going to get done. Let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, Senator Hirono, conservatives don't face discrimination on social media because Media Matters says so. From Ryan Saavedra. You already know how intelligent that's going to be. Senator Hirono, who is ranked as one of the most partisan and far-left members of the U.S. Senate, claimed on Tuesday that social media bias against conservative users does not exist, even as she complained that publications like Fox News and the Daily Wire perform too well on the platform. Mr. Zuckerberg, for the second time in 3 weeks, you have been called before the Senate committee so my Republican colleagues can beat you up over claims that your platforms are supposedly biased against conservatives. The fact of the matter is that these allegations are completely baseless. Really? Go look where all the fucking blue tags are on Twitter. Hirono said that there was no evidence that social media platforms were biased against conservatives because Media Matters, a left-wing organization that smears conservatives and advocates harming conservative news organizations with boycotts, says so. Let's see, is that Hirono? I think that's Hirono. Everyone who has systemically looked at the content of social media from Media Matters to the Cato Institute to former Senator John Kyle has found absolutely no evidence of anti-conservative bias, and data from CrowdTangle show that far-right content from the likes of Fox News, Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino dominates the top 10 most engaged pages on Facebook. So all of these allegations about the fact that you hire or all of your employees are far left of center is relevant of nothing, certainly not relevant on some sort of anti-conservative bias in terms of your content moderation, Hirono claimed. So the way I see it, this hearing is a transparent effort by my Republican colleagues to work the refs, and unfortunately, in my view, is working. Well, it's not working. And yet, it may still be a transparent effort to work the refs. Two things can be true at once. But, yes, if you're going to use Media Matters to try and say what's going against conservatives and what isn't, I suggest you at least find one dissenting source. Let's keep going. From the AP. Army Secretary says Wreath-Laying event at Arlington back on. Game on! Which is good, because, I mean, the Wreath-Laying thing, that's a good thing. But let's see what the AP has to say from Kevin Freaking. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy has reversed the COVID-related cancellation of an annual wreath-laying event at Arlington National Cemetery next month, following criticism on social media and pleas to the White House. President Donald Trump said later Tuesday it was he who had reversed this ridiculous decision to cancel the event. "It will now go on," he tweeted. Each year, volunteers around the country place wreaths on the tombstones and markers of veterans as part of Wreaths Across America. The tradition began in 1992 when a Maine wreath maker donated 5,000 wreaths to Arlington. The event has expanded to thousands of locations across the country. On Monday, Arlington National Cemetery announced that it was with great regret canceling the Wreaths Across America event scheduled for December 19th due to COVID-19 that prompted a backlash on social media, including from Republicans. Representative Dan Crenshaw of Texas. Dude, I didn't even get that one up here. I completely forgot about this, but Crenshaw is up there too, and he is... Let me see if I can actually find this. Stand by. A little bit of exposure on the Discord. I gotta add this one, though. I've got to. Because we've got to look at this one. Dan Crenshaw just becoming nakedly pro-war. And I know I added this up here because I wanted to put it on there and put it on the show. Stand by, on-air production. There it is. We're going to add this one up to the stack and read it. Right after this one, in fact. Sorry about the on-air production, folks. But we needed to do this one. This one was too important, and I can't believe I forgot about it. All right, let's finish up with the wreaths, and then let's talk a little bit about what else is going on here. The group that helps coordinate the ceremony, Wreaths Across America, also issued pleas to continue this year's event, including with the White House. Shortly before group officials were told to hold a news conference on Tuesday, they received word of McCarthy's decision. Karen Wister, executive director of Wreaths Across America, said that when the organization had initially learned of the cancellation in Arlington, it reached out to Arlington National Cemetery's leadership to discuss options for keeping the tradition going safely. Now, I don't know how crowded this thing gets, first and foremost. But the other side of that is the fact that people were just standing out there shoulder to shoulder, chugging champagne with the masks down, making out in the streets when they found out that Biden had won. So any concern about an outdoor event at this point, I'm going to call full-on bullshit for COVID concerns. Because at this point, it's just about control. But, I mean, if this does get crowded, then that is a concern to have. But the people can assess their own risk. That's what I've been saying since the beginning of the COVID crisis, is people can come out and assess their own risks. But, of course, this is a right-wing event, so the virus is a super spreader event. You know what? If they carried protest signs when they went out there, then they could go out and do the wreath-laying, as long as they came out with protest signs. But they have to be left-wing protest signs. But other than that, I mean, this is a great way to honor those who gave their lives willingly to protect yours, even though most of them went out to go and protect U.S. interests in foreign countries at this point. That's a regrettable part of this, and Dan Crenshaw is ready. That's the reason I wanted to have that article up here, is because Dan Crenshaw is getting very, very eager on that. But yes, even still, these people volunteered to defend you in case somebody does cross that U.S. threshold, in the unlikely event that they do. So these people do deserve our respect and our honor. They deserve the wreath-laying in their rest. So it's good that they turned it back around. And the people who are going to be out wreath-laying, I think, are going to be responsible enough to make sure that they don't infect themselves and others. So, game on for that. Let's see what Crenshaw has to say. Withdrawing troops rapidly might make some people feel better, but it won't be good for the American security. We will be right back in the same place as pre-9/11. No deterrence, no situational awareness, vulnerable to emboldened terrorists. Because, out of the AP, I can't believe I forgot this. This is a big pet project of mine. AP sources: Trump to order troop cuts in Afghanistan and Iraq. From Lolita C. Baldor. President Trump is expected to cut a significant number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan and a smaller number in Iraq in the final days of his presidency, U.S. officials said Monday. The plan would run counter to military commanders' advice over the past year, while still falling short of President Trump's much-touted goal to end America's long wars. The decision comes just days after Trump installed a new slate of loyalists in top Pentagon positions who share his frustration with the continued troop presence in the war zones. But the expected plans would leave 2,500 troops in both Iraq and Afghanistan, meaning President-elect Biden would be the fourth president to grapple with the still smoldering conflicts launched in the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 attacks. And you know what he's going to do about it, because these people like Dan Crenshaw and his one fucking eye, are standing there, salivating, just fucking drooling over the fact that we're going to go back and do more war. We're going back. We're going back. The wars are going to go. The wars are on. We're going to start a new one. And then we can get our big Raytheon fucking payouts. And McConnell, I said that yesterday, was the same way. Well, now that it looks like President Trump is out, now we do need to get more people into Afghanistan. Maybe we need to start a new war. These people are nakedly warmongering at this point, getting ready to go for another endless war, knowing full well that they can have Biden paid off by Raytheon to have him authorize a new one. These people are salivating over the idea of going to a new war. And it's disgusting, you fucking war pigs. Alright, rant over on that one here, but I figured that you guys deserve to hear that one, even if I was a little bit off kilter when I was setting up the show and forgot to put it on there. Let's keep going. I got just a few more here, and then we will do something that I'm thankful for, and head on out of here. A little bit of foreign news to end out the day. From CNN, Nestle renames out-of-step Australian candy products. From Jack Guy. Nestle is renaming 2 candy products in Australia that said it had overtones which are out of step with the company's values. The Swiss company said in a statement on Monday that it was changing the name of Allen's Redskins to Red Ripper, while Chico's will now be sold as Cheekies. The names of the products have prompted complaints for several years. Redskin is a slur used to describe Native Americans. Chicos are brown, chocolate-flavored jelly snacks molded into the shape of a person, and Chico is a Spanish word meaning boys, kids, or small. Nestle has an unwavering commitment to upholding respect for our friends, neighbors, and colleagues, said Chris O'Donnell, general manager of the confectionery at Nestle. We hope Australians will support the evolution of these two much-loved lollies. While names are new, the lollies themselves remain unchanged. Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, and now Redskins and Chicos. And Eskimo pie, remember too? That one wasn't good enough. Why? Why are people so offendable? Alright. Let's see what's happening in the Middle East now that these war pigs are getting ready to go out and start a new war. Which I do feel like there are efforts concerted to try and make sure that a new war does get started under Trump's lame duck term. Because then he can't come out and say, I never started any wars. These guys are war pigs, but I never started any new wars. And I did everything I could to get all the ones that were in drawn down. Alright, let's see here. Rockets apparently fired by an Iranian-backed Iraqi militia hit U.S. complex in Baghdad as tensions with Tehran rise. From Karen DeYoung, Louisa Lovelock, and Ellen Nakashima. 3 rockets, apparently fired by an Iranian-backed Iraqi militia, landed in the U.S. Embassy complex within Baghdad's fortified Green Zone late Tuesday amid rising tension with Iran and the waning days of the Trump administration. A U.S. military official, speaking on the condition of anonymity in advance of a formal statement, said initial reports indicated there had been no injuries to U.S. personnel or damage to American facilities. Another rocket reportedly landed elsewhere in the zone, and the Iraqi army said in a statement that another fell outside the area, killing a young child and wounding 5 Iraqi civilians. The attack came as President Trump consulted with top members of his national security team about a possible strike on Iran. Following reports of a sharp expansion on its uranium enrichment program, the government in Tehran has said it has no intention of building a nuclear weapon. In a meeting Thursday, advisors cautioned against a preemptive strike, according to a senior U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity, because of the sensitivity of the matter. Since his legacy is to have pulled the United States out of regional wars, Trump was advised he should resist starting a new conflict in a region where he has ordered U.S. troop withdrawals. And yes, he should. And I would need to know more details about where these rockets came from and what this means going forward for political tensions. I'm just finding out about this now, pretty much at the same time as you guys are. An hour before was the first time that I even heard that this had happened. So, my biggest hope is that we don't have an expanded war. And I know that there's just another war pig getting ready to come back into the White House, and his enforcer of a VP, ready to show that she's one of the boys, if they wind up pulling off this election and getting asterisked in. So we will see what happens up out of the Middle East with this. And I've got one more from Newsweek. Iran's Rouhani calls U.S. a terrorist after rocket attack on Baghdad embassy kills a child. What? This is like the abusive husband telling his wife, "Why are you making me hit you?" Iranian President Hassan Rouhani is keeping up with Tehran's drumbeat of anti-American criticism in the regime, the regime waits to see what President-elect Joe Biden will do once he takes office in January, accusing the country of acting as a terrorist. Meanwhile, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, the preliminary battlefield for the U.S.-Iranian conflict, appears to have resumed rocket attacks against the American embassy in Baghdad after a month of hiatus, killing 1 child and injuring 5 others. According to Iran's state-run Fars news agency, Rouhani, a moderate president who signed the 2015 nuclear deal and whose term expires in June, repeated a common Iranian attack on Wednesday, claiming the U.S. government is a terrorist. Okay, your government just backed 3 rockets that went into U.S. green zone and killed a child, an Iraqi child, and you're calling the U.S. a terrorist. Why are you making me hit you? Why are you making me hit you? Why would you make me hit you? Fucking prick. So yes, now that they're sitting here licking their chops, all the defense contractors, all the war fucking pigs, are sitting here licking their chops over the fact that Joe Biden might get Trump out of office. And they might get their sweet, cushy payments coming back in. And of course, Iran, looking for justification to keep going to war in the Middle East. And people wanted to vote for Biden because Donald Trump tweeted mean things. These fucking war pigs are never going to stop. Every goddamn one of them. They're never going to stop. War is all that they know. And they're showing the fact that war is all they know. So, yeah. Get ready for more massive military budget. More wars. More people who weren't born by the time September 11th started going over to die in Afghanistan. And more general Mideast chaos. Get ready for it because it's fucking coming. Alright. That's going to be it for the news for the day. The last thing that we do on a Wednesday is something that I am thankful for. So, I thought about this for a little bit. And I mean, we're coming up into Thanksgiving. And by the way, I will be doing contemporary on Thanksgiving morning. I don't know where I will be doing it from, but I will be doing it. I decided that at the last minute. I might go to my mom and dad's on Wednesday night. I don't know yet. And even if I do, I will get up on Thursday morning and we will do contemporary. We might not do a full news format. We might just do some talks. I might even see if I can take some calls. And we'll get some of the stuff that you're thankful for. It will be the most audience-involved episode of Contemporary. But that is something we will deal with as we come and as more plans get cemented. But as for right now, what I'm thankful for today. So I've got a friend that lives in west suburb Chicago. She and I talk back and forth every once in a while. She sent me a message because she knows that I do politics and society, talking about the fact that a guy, he I guess posted on Reddit that he told his friend that calling women females was dehumanizing. And now the dude just has to physically stop and catch himself because he'd been doing it for so long. And this is some kind of ghetto stuff that goes along with that. I'm not going to lie. I know that that's a factor in this. And a heavy patriarchy in the ghetto, even though some of them don't know who their fathers are, but a heavy traditionalism that goes into that area does play a role in some of this. But I've been saying this forever, that I don't know why they call their women either females or bitches, because they call them both, and why they don't find that dehumanizing, because it's absolutely dehumanizing. But what I'm thankful for right now, and I used to see some of this stuff when I lived in Kenosha, and even when I worked in Milwaukee. I worked among a mostly black crew when I worked in Milwaukee. I worked in a little restaurant up there, and most of the people that worked with me were from the north side. So they had that way of talking. They had that sort of patriarchal way of looking at the world and male dominance and everything else that went along with it. They had that. And they were willing to call their women bitches and females. And it is dehumanizing. But I'm thankful right now that I was able to get away from some of that. That I had the opportunity to get out into the... I don't live in the country, but I live in a more rural town. And I'm far, far away from that. And I told her, I said, where I live, we don't see that kind of stuff. And it's not like this is a predominantly white area, too. It's very integrated, but it's not the deep in the ghetto kind of integrated. The people that move here, no matter the color of their skin, adopt the sort of rural mentality of things and let their society fit the way that it is. I'm so thankful that I don't have to live among that anymore. That I can come out and live in a decent society where everyone's treated respectfully. I love that. And that's what I'm thankful for here today. So we will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary, and tomorrow night's going to be game night. So we'll be doing some more Super Mario RPG. We need a video game night. I know that I got sick and I took off last week from the video game, but we need a video game night. We definitely do. Maybe I'll play Civ 5. Because I've been doing that lately too, and that's a lot of fun. Just a little break from monotony and see what has to go from there. Maybe I'll do that instead. We'll see. But there's plenty more news to come with this, and the war pigs are salivating, so we'll see more of that, I'm sure. We'll see a lot more election news because that's going to keep going until it's all certified and until the electors are selected. And even after that, there's probably going to be challenges. So it'll be back here for all of that and more. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.